Hi everyone, this is Sabrina and I'm going to be going over data meeting number 4 for group number 2. Jennifer was the facilitator, I was the recorder, and Jim was the timekeeper. Prior to this meeting, we needed to have read all of the required readings from Venables, as well as prepared to discuss our shares from DGO and looking over the planning protocol rubric and the action planning tracking sheet, as well as uploading any other artifacts to our Google Drive shared folder that we wanted to discuss during this meeting. We started with our shares from our PLC Activity 1, and this was super helpful because it really gave us kind of an insight into some of the resources that each member can use in order to help them as they go through this process and creating and implementing the different strategies that they're going to do. So Jennifer shared some different park resources. One of the one shared a lot of examples of questions that she could use as she rolls out her mimic park questions. She really wants to help her students to relate to the test more, so this is a great resource for her. And then she shared a park framework, which she said was pretty much everything you need to know about park, from how they create the test to any frequent asked question you can think of. So two great resources for what her target is. And then Jim shared about closing ELL and ESL gaps. He said that this was more of a blog post and it used blended learning for testing for ESOL, as well as how we can use online resources to improve instruction. He said that this was a good read and great information, but not necessarily a great resource to go back to. However, the one that he found about reading comprehension strategies was really great. It's how to address the students, and it really broke down the different strategies for questioning, chunking, reading, summarizing, etc., and offered some real strategies going after the specifics of what the ESOL students really need. So again, some great resources there. And then I shared my two that are specifically geared towards the students that I work with, students with autism. And the first one was different challenging behaviors. So this breaks down everything into specific behaviors, as well as it gives lots of resources for the autism community. Then the second one was a TED Talk from a individual who was diagnosed at a young age with autism and now has a PhD and is a renowned guest speaker. And she discusses about the minds of students with autism, and it really gave me a different perspective on how to relate to my students and maybe what's going on internally. So here's our SMART target learning goals, and we went over those again this week as we started to plan. So I don't want to spend too much time reading those, but those are our SMART target learning goals that we went over. Then we really spent the chunk of time kind of going over and helping each other out with our action plan tracking sheets. So this was Jennifer's, and she was really able to kind of break it down to where she can kind of get the picture of what she's going to be doing. And so like if you look at her first one, it's students will answer 2 text-driven questions in a Part A, Part B format. And she related that to the depth of knowledge for the rubric that we were cross-referencing. And then her method will be students will use knowledge gained from the previous day as they complete the first read of a text. And this warm-up asks students to recall information from the story, reference specific line numbers, and practice strategic reasoning as they determine the possible answer is correct. Students are going to work independently on this, and then she is going to implement that daily, and it will be completed at the beginning of the class period. So she has some other instructional tactics that she's going to roll out, which are really great as we get started. Here's my action plan tracking sheet, and I really focused on the student's BIP that I'm going to be revising. I started to write it last year, and we revise it every time we add a new strategy. So I have that in there, as well as the one-to-one staffing the student just got this year, which should make a huge difference academically as well as behaviorally. So I kind of listed out some of those and went through using the rubric to show what type of dimension the instructional tactic is going to be. And then Jim's action plan tracking sheet is very detailed, as well as he really targets his ESOL students in smaller groups, and he's really trying to get them to gain a point on their WIDA test and um, the test scores for Unify. So he does a great job here at really breaking it down. And then we went over the evaluation metric. So again, I won't spend too much time reading those, but here's each of our evaluation metric on how we are going to determine whether or not they have met the criteria that we have set up. And then last is the reflections and suggestions for improvement. So I think our group really seems to be doing a great job at commenting on each other's plans and goals. I think we've had some valuable conversations around how we're going to implement. And we also had some great discussion around special education and ESOL and some of the similarities they have, such as the need to model almost everything when it comes to instruction, as well as we can't assume that the students understand something right away. It's made for a great way for all of us to be able to relate to one another and offer strategies for improvement, as well as ideas on how to implement our new plans. One area of improvement for myself personally is the lack of understanding that I have on the assessments that Jim and Jennifer use. I'd like to be able to really help and dig into how they can effectively target the lower learners on these tests. I do feel like I have lower learners in my class, but they take a totally different alternative assessment, so it can be difficult for me sometimes to relate. But as a group, I think we can continue to come to the meetings prepared and ready to discuss our topic at hand. And then here's our reference again. And again, we had a great Data 4 meeting, and we're looking forward to implementing our plans very soon. All right, thanks.